Watch this lie. Comey said he never authorized anyone within the FBI to be an anonymous source, but Kash Patel exposed that as a lie. Comey was having info leaked to the New York Times to undermine President Trump.
Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal. Who's telling the truth?
I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
Very high likelihood this case will be over before Christmas. The Eastern District of Virginia has what's called the Rocket Docket. So this could be a conviction before the end of the year. Merry Christmas. Welcome to the party, James. Comey indicted. And of course, Trump immediately put out a Truth Social post. Justice in America, one of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to, is James Comey, the former corrupt head of the FBI. Today, he was indicted by a grand jury on 2 felony counts for various illegal and unlawful acts. He's been so bad for our country for so long, and is now at the beginning of being held responsible for his crimes against our nation. Make America great again. He didn't say, thanks for your attention to this matter. I'm a little disappointed, President Trump. Count 1, false statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the United States government. This is lying to Congress under oath. On or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant James Brian Lyon Comey Jr. did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of Congress by falsely stating to a U.S. Senator during a Senate Judiciary Committee that he, James Brian Lyon Comey Jr., had not authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an investigation concerning person 1, so redacted. That statement was false because, as James Brian Lyon Comey Jr. then and there knew, he in fact had authorized person 3 to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person 1. That's a violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001A2. And count 2, obstruction of a congressional proceeding. On or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James Brian Lyon Comey, did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being had before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee, all in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1505, signed by the foreperson, whose name has been redacted, and Lindsay Halligan, the United States Attorney, Assistant United States Attorney, who was just a day or two ago, I think 3 days ago, appointed by Trump in place of an Assistant U.S. Attorney who'd been slow walking this evidence, this grand jury proceeding for months, and had just informed Trump that, or informed Pam Bondi that, you know what, I'm not feeling it. I'm not going to indict Comey. I've been telling you for months we're super close to submitting this to the grand jury, but now that you're pressing it on me, days before the statute of limitations would have been exhausted and Comey would have been free of any possibility of criminal prosecution for these crimes, now I'm feeling like, I'm not going to move forward with this. That's why the existing Assistant U.S. Attorney got fired and replaced with Lindsay Halligan by Trump. Again, the 2-page DOJ indictment of James Brian Lyon Comey Jr., we just covered both counts. He's looking at up to 10 years in a federal penitentiary. Jonathan Turley, a very good lawyer and legal analyst, has some thoughts on this on X. He writes, the Comey indictment presents 2 counts that come down to whether James Comey is a leaker and a liar. Either Comey approved the leaks or he did not. What's unclear is the reference in the body of the indictment to false statements. However, the language discusses a single false statement. It is as if material may have been deleted from the grand jury. In the end, the most unnerving aspect for Washington may be a prosecution for a leak. This is a city that floats on a sea of leaks. A leak prosecution in Washington is as startling as a solicitation prosecution in Las Vegas. In fairness, though, Jonathan, it's not really a leak prosecution. It's a lying about the leak prosecution under oath. That's what's actually happening. Comey's not getting prosecuted for a leak.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Never.
Question two on relatively related. Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No.
Notice how clear that is. Never and no. Not to my recollection, not I have no memory of that, not to my awareness, I have not. None of this ambiguous, wishy-washy language that can save you from a perjury and obstruction charge. What did James Comey said in direct response to these direct and explicit questions? Never and no. And what did he say in front of Ted Cruz? I stand by that testimony.
Information relating to President Trump or his associates been declassified and shared with the media?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to my knowledge. Of course, we're going to have evidence that it was exactly to his knowledge. More from Donald Trump passed on to us by Benny Johnson. Whether you like corrupt James Comey or not, and I can't imagine too many people liking him, he lied. It's not a complex lie. It's a very simple but important one. There is no way he can explain his way out of it. He is a dirty cop and always has been. But he was just assigned a crooked Joe Biden appointed judge. It is a Biden appointed judge on the case, by the way, for Comey's trial. So he's off to a very good start. Nevertheless, words are words, and he wasn't hedging or in dispute. He was very positive. There was no doubt in his mind about what he said or meant by saying it. He left himself zero margin of error on a big and important answer to a question. He just got unexpectedly caught. James Dirty Cop Comey was a destroyer of lives. He knew exactly what he was saying and that it was a very serious and far-reaching lie for which a very big price must be paid. President Donald J. Trump. By the way, Comey was one of the biggest advocates for treating the January 6 protesters as severely as possible. Something like 20% of the 40,000 FBI agents that exist, something like 5,000 to 8,000 of them were dedicated to running down the January 6 protesters. That's all at Comey's order. And then he was a huge advocate for holding them as accountable to treason as he could possibly get. He was advocating for the most severe prison sentence that could possibly be imposed on these protesters, even as many of them were being held in solitary confinement for months or years without trial. That's who James Comey is. When the shoe was on the other foot, Comey was all for as much severity as possible. I wonder how he feels about all that now. Obama's former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted, false statement and obstruction, helped carry out the Trump-Russia collusion lie, which cost the American people over $32 million and smeared President Trump in his first term. Remember, it was incessant drum beating. Russia hoax, Russia hoax, Russia puppet, especially by guys like Adam Schiff, who was on the congressional committee with a top secret security clearance for this kinds of material and would come out of every committee hearing saying, I can't tell you what I saw, but what I saw is absolute evidence of the Russian collusion of Trump. All a lie, always a lie, every time he said those words, and he said those words almost every day for the entirety of Trump's first term. Green writes, Comey helped carry out the Trump-Russia collusion lie, cost Americans $32 million, and smeared President Trump in his first term. The media sold that lie every day, brainwashing Americans into believing it. And in May, Comey called for Trump to be killed in a social media post. Remember, Comey found the little seashells? Oh, look, I was just walking along. Cool. Shell formation on my beach walk. 86-47. Of course, 86 is numerology for kill. 47 would be the 47th president of the United States, which would be, of course, the great and powerful Donald J. Trump. Very funny, isn't it? Very funny. How clever. For a former director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation to make dead president jokes, assassinate the president jokes, he just happened to walk across the beach. Nice lifestyle, by the way. His beach walk. And he found seashells organized in a manner to communicate a desire to assassinate the president of the United States. Sounds credible? When Trump was indicted by the swamp, how did Comey react to that? Well, fortunately, we know, because he did it publicly on X. When Trump was indicted, 2 million views. Comey wrote, "It's a good day for the rule of law." How was yesterday, James? Was yesterday a good day for the rule of law? Comey also wrote, "Donald Trump isn't coming for us." This is just last year. The rule of law is coming for him. Who did the rule of law come for yesterday? James Brian Lyon Comey Jr.? Who did it come for yesterday? Reverse Uno. Biatch, reverse Uno. And then he drops this super creepy video. He looks animatronic here. If there was a Disney Hall, not of presidents, but a Disney Hall of disgraced FBI directors, he would be the primary display.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right, but I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged. You are paying attention.
The funny thing is, his lies are so easily documented. The evidence is so lock solid. Now, does that mean he's going to get convicted and sentenced to prison? No, there's lots of escape hatches still available to James Comey. We'll have to see what happens. But no reasonable person could look at this evidence and say he did not commit perjury, did not commit obstruction of justice. He's not afraid because he thinks he's going to be able to wriggle his way out despite his guilt.
And you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it.
Vote like your beloved country depends upon it. Vote like my ass depends on it. For God's sakes, elect another Democrat president so I can get a pardon after this conviction. That's the translation of this.
Which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's keep the faith. So let's have a trial.
Let's have a trial and keep the faith.
And keep the faith.
Well, we're going to have a trial, James. It's not up to you. It's not up to you. You're not agreeing to a duel here, my friend. There is no decision-making for you here unless you decide to plead guilty. We're having a trial. You're entered into the criminal justice system. You'll be handcuffed today, my friend. You're going to be walked into booking today. Mugshot taken. Your turn, MFer. And it's not because you're agreeing to it. It's because you have been called accountable to Lady Justice. FBI Director Patel.
A former FBI director has been indicted on federal charges. So FBI Director Kash Patel has a lengthier statement than Attorney General Bondi. Patel says, "Today, your FBI took another step in its promise of full accountability. For far too long, previous corrupt leadership and their enablers weaponized federal law enforcement, damaging once proud institutions and severely eroding public trust. Every day we continue to the fight to earn that trust back, and under my leadership, this FBI will confront the problem head on. Nowhere was this politicization of law enforcement more blatant than during the Russiagate hoax, a disgraceful chapter in history we continue to investigate and expose. Everyone, especially those in positions of power, will be held to account, no matter their perch. No one is above the law."
Watch this lie. James Comey told Congress September 3rd, 2020. That's probably why he was indicted. Comey said he never authorized anyone within the FBI to be an anonymous source. But Kash Patel exposed that as a lie. Comey was having info leaked to the New York Times to undermine President Trump.
Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, "Have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?" You responded under oath, quote, "Never." He then asked you, quote, "Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration?" You responded again under oath, "No." Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave. I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
His is the same today. By the way, there's additional evidence also that one of his best friends, who works at a university, I believe as a law professor, was actually hired. He paid money to his best friend to be a leaker to the media. So he orchestrated those leaks through his close friend as well, who, by the way, was just subpoenaed. Very high likelihood this case will be over before Christmas. The Eastern District of Virginia has what's called the Rocket Docket. So this could be a conviction before the end of the year. Merry Christmas. Welcome to the party, James. Shipwreck Crew also adds James Comey should be told to appear at the FBI office in Alexandria. He should be booked like anyone else, then taken in cuffs and leg irons to make an initial appearance before a federal magistrate. Why is Shipwreck Crew saying that? Again, he was a lawyer who defended many of the January 6 protesters, and this is what they did to every one of them. If they came across one in an airport, in the security area, waiting to board a plane, and they made the arrest there, right there in the middle of the airport, they would handcuff them and put them in leg irons. Why? We're talking about people who were advisors to President Trump. In a secure area of an airport, they're not a threat to anybody. They have no weapons. Most of them were old. The FBI put them in handcuffs and leg irons in public like that for no purpose other than to humiliate them. As Shipwreck Crew notes, this was the standard protocol for January 6 defendants, even those who were just charged with misdemeanors. James Comey is expected to surrender to federal authorities tomorrow morning. That would be this morning. Officially being placed under arrest. It's finally happened. Bring on. Look at all those mugshots. Look at them. President Trump, Giuliani, all of them. 19 people here. A priest. Look at what they did. Did they hold back? Is this an example of, hey, don't engage in political prosecutions, Republicans, because if you do it, the Democrats will do it to you? Did the Democrats wait? Do they wait? Or they just go ahead and do it? Mike Davis notes, amazing work by U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan. This is the woman who was just appointed by Trump a couple days ago to take over from the Eastern District of Virginia Assistant U.S. Attorney who had been slow walking this case for months, telling everybody we're getting real close to putting this before a grand jury. He never intended to do that. A couple of days ago, he told Pam Bondi, you know what? Now that the statute of limitations is less than a week away and Comey will be forever free of any risk of prosecution for perjury and obstruction, for the first time, I'm going to tell you, my boss, Pam Bondi, Attorney General of the Department of Justice, I've made the call that I'm not going to continue this case against Comey. That's why he got fired and Lindsay Halligan got put in. In just 3 days, she worked around the clock to bring this much-deserved indictment of Comey, and she had to beat back insubordinate Department of Justice deep staters. To those who claim there was no evidence against Comey, the grand jury disagrees. Catherine Herridge, again, she says, I understand the indictment was ready to go. I'm told all the evidence was there. Not a shaky criminal case, as characterized some media reporting. Critics of former U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert allege he was blocking or slow walking the charges. Interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan removed those blocks. A key factor, FBI Director Cash declassified FBI leak investigations codenamed Arctic Haze. They revealed Comey's role authorizing media leaks. At least one involved classified information through his FBI subordinates or through his Columbia Law School professor, Richmond, who is a close personal friend of Comey's and has been for decades. We thought, this account writes, that Comey had just leaked documents to Columbia Law professor Richmond. He actually hired him. So Richmond was now an agent working for James Comey in leaking this information to the New York Times to undermine Trump presidency, this false information. On May 16th, 2017, Comey provided a separate copy of Confidential Memo 4 to Columbia Law professor and personal friend Richmond, who was one of Comey's attorneys and a close personal friend. Richmond also served as a special government employee at the FBI. That's like a pseudo special agent status, so you can get access to the facilities and to classified documents. During a portion of the time that Comey was an FBI director, Comey sent photographs of both pages of the memo to Richmond via text message from Comey's personal cell phone. So if this was official FBI business, why wouldn't Comey be using his FBI cell phone? Why wouldn't Comey be having staff do this? Because, of course, Comey was on a personal mission, not a professional mission. Comey instructed Richmond to share the contents of the memo, but not the memo itself, with a specific reporter for the New York Times. That's the authorized leak. Comey did not seek FBI authorization before providing the comments in the memo through Richmond to a reporter. As noted above, the FBI later marked Memo 4 for official use only, determined that it did not contain classified information. We found no evidence that Comey or his attorneys released any classified information, so he's not charged with that crime. He's charged with the crime not of leaking, but of leaking and then lying about it under oath. That's the criminal charge against Comey. So much evidence against him. A 2021 FBI document I've obtained contradicts Comey's denials to the Senate. The leak investigation revealed Comey hired friend, Columbia law professor Dan Richmond, so Comey could discuss classified information with someone outside FBI's leadership, and he used Richmond as a liaison to the media. And now that guy, Columbia law professor Dan Richmond, has been subpoenaed. I wonder what kind of evidence and testimony we're going to get out of Dan Richmond. This is where you learn who your real friends are, folks. Are your real friends, are they interested in going to federal prison for the same sentence you would get 10 years in federal prison for aiding and abetting, perjury and obstruction, for being an accessory before and after, for committing perjury under subpoena? Is Dan Richmond ready to go to a federal penitentiary for you? James Brian Lyon Comey? I guess we're going to find out. Hubris, karma, the worm turns, F.A. Find out. Welcome to the party, Comey.